How do you stand out in a more crowded room? This is absolutely something that us as agents, and especially listing agents, need to understand. With listings up nationwide 28.5% and having 10,000 plus units alone here in my market, Denver, Colorado, we must look at this not as a panic, but as an opportunity. But where there's opportunity, we need to apply strategy. So that's what we're going to talk about today. What's up, guys? I'm Jeremy Kane with the Real Estate Agent Playbook. I help agents just like you solve all the problems, figure out exactly what's going on with your clients, with your transactions, but more importantly, how we get to a point where we can be consistent and scale our business and win every single day at the game of real estate organically. If you like that, if you're one of those people that's struggling and just needs a little pick-me-up, please book a call with me below. I'd be happy to chat with you because I have helped agents just like you take their business from stale to thriving, just like we need to do with these listings. So let's address this inventory increase. We aren't in a buyer's market, but we're certainly not in the hot sellers market of 2020, 2021, etc. We need to understand exactly what we are doing as agents that is causing listings to stagnate, to have that anxiety of picking up your phone and calling the seller with, yes, another week of few showings, little feedback, and what do we do now kind of mentality. This is something that we haven't had to deal with across the board for a long time as real estate agents and listing agents. With this active inventory up and all of the things that is going on in our market, there is so many calls, right? AI coming to save the day, or this listing platform or that listing platform or this video strategy. And at the end of the day, we just need to step back and actually have a true audit of our process. And it starts with the launch, right? The pre-listing and the launch is super important, but as in times of past, we had to have a launch, strategy, have everything out there if we wanted to have any sort of personal brand on that listing. And that's just not the case anymore. We need a good launch strategy, but we can't throw the kitchen sink in up front, because honestly, we need to slow down to speed up and have an understanding of days on market and what's going on, because the post and pray is failing in most cases. Sure, the odd part of this market is that some things are going. Well, it's not that odd. It's the turnkey properties that are priced aggressively, that have, sellers who are happy as a clam that they bought in 2010 and have absolutely capitalized on their real estate investment. But there's also sellers out there that aren't in that boat. And that's where it gets difficult, when that, desired, walk away price is getting closer to, not being possible, right? Especially if they've bought in the last 2 or 3 years. So the post and pray strategy and methodology just isn't working in this market for listings across the board. Perfect turnkey homes are going quickly. We need to understand what that's going to look like. And guess what? If we have some content on a house that we put out or we don't put out because it's a delayed strategy, we can still use that in our branding to talk about it and do the things. So it's not all for waste. And that's what we really need to focus on, because ultimately when the listings start to pile up, we can't, be running around to film new content every single chance we get. So content is a huge thing, and we're going to get into that and talk about how we can change what we are doing as agents to not only sell the property that is in front of us, but absolutely leverage the opportunity to grow that personal brand and get that out there and highlight that property and your personal brand simultaneously across the entire days on market that the listing is on. So now you say, okay, Jeremy, that sounds great. What are we going to talk about? And this is where the content creation and the development, the use of AI to analyze your properties and do these things for you and help you with some marketing, some scripts, and however you create that content, we need to go wider, right? We need to quit talking all about the specs and the price and, that's it. We need to create a lifestyle. We need to tell the story. And that starts with communication on the front end, right? I love to ask my clients, what do you love most about being at this, property? What do you love most about living in this town? And take that as a roadmap to how you need to market it. Because the truth is that those people that lived in the home are probably your target market just a little bit earlier in life. And so as we move forward, it's about telling stories. It's about putting out creative content. You say, well, I'm busy. I have this, I have that. We can put out creative content surrounding listings by asking the seller. We can ask our trusty friend ChatGPT, and we can do a lot of different things. It's not about buying the next thing and purchasing this, fancy add-on and so on. Certainly there's some ideas out there, and I'm going to talk about a few here shortly that will help with that and help the visibility and tried and true ways that we can invest smartly to get those listings moved. But ultimately, it's a major opportunity for you to get some content out there about lifestyle, about the areas and all the things. And the truth is, if we are driving content to the community or to that specific listing, it's only going to help our personal brand overall. And the sellers love it, right? If it's a little bit different, they're going to love the videos. Some of my sellers say, please don't take that video down ever, because we want to keep it as a, keepsake of our house because you highlighted it so beautifully and so on. And so it's about telling the story. So create a mini buyer avatar for your specific property. Keep in mind, it's likely the seller's age when they bought the property, or, maybe things have changed. But if they love living there, they were there for a long time, that's a perfect avatar to target as somebody that you are speaking to. What are they going to like? And the truth is, it's an easy hack because you have somebody that can tell you, in most cases, exactly what they loved about the property. And then you can just go back to ChatGPT and research those things and highlight them in a creative way that will give you multiple layers of content that tell the entire story and not just square footage and bedrooms and, backyards. So this is something that we have to kind of step back, and it's hard, right? Because I have it too, the anxiety of, oh man, I got to call this seller and we don't have much to tell them. Well, if you don't have much to tell them, in this case, at least you have, hey, these are, kind of the social media posts we're putting out. This is what we're doing. This is what we're looking like on homes.com and so on. And we can start to really dial this in and understand exactly what the avatar needs. And it's a full circle method because we actually have the opportunity to leverage this listing, right? List to last. It's an old school, saying. But the truth is that the longer we have the listing, the more chances we have to market in creative ways and bring more new relationships and get more new eyes on how we are marketing listings, which means more listings coming in, some buyers maybe that, are driving by, scanning, QR codes and things like that we can take to the next level. Ultimately, it's about platform distribution, and this is kind of counter to a lot of my teaching as far as focus on one platform and build it up. The cool part is if you've focused on one platform, built it up, stayed consistent, then you're on to the next one and the next one, you have a couple opportunities. However, platforms do not have to be fully optimized and up and working for you to use them, right? Maybe these pieces of content will help spur that momentum and get things moving on that platform that just seems to, be a little stagnant for you. So as we dive in, right, you have our short-term, attention span for sure is a thing, right? So obviously short form content, tagging, the location, the city, doing things that we can do to not only reach our audience, but pull someone in. I just posted a story today and I said, location, Longmont, Colorado, in the Instagram story format, and it already has multiple views from people that saw that tag and looked at the video. So there are certain ways to do this when you get into social media and you have these things that will also grow your reach, not just hit your personal people. And that's the beauty of algorithms for sure. Next, we have the old trusty Facebook. You can always get the Facebook ads, but I think, highlighting a native Facebook video. Obviously, we've heard all about the links and how Facebook's definitely even removing some of those posts. So if we're doing video natively into Facebook, more people are going to see it. People love, the lifestyle. They love property tours. And so if you're utilizing this and say you're doing it for YouTube, we'll pull that native video and throw it on Facebook and start to stir up at least some views, right? Because ultimately we're just collecting data to show our clients what we are doing differently than just posting in the MLS. And if you're, utilizing these pieces of content natively in different ways across multiple platforms, those views are going to start to stack up. And instead of being fearful, you can say, hey, 5,000 people saw it on Facebook and Instagram. We had another 300 views of the property tour on YouTube. And you can start to break this down, right? If you use YouTube as a sticking point, or maybe this is how you launch a YouTube channel, right? YouTube is great for SEO and searching, and as we know, it's owned by Google. So if you get that right and you learn that platform, which we have the greatest that ever done it, Mike Sherrard, in our organization, and you get that his entire Social Agent Academy for absolutely free when you join us. So if some of these social media platforms are something you want to do, you want to get better at, reach out. You can book a call below and I can talk about getting it all to you for absolutely free. And then let's talk a little bit about some of the platforms that I am using that I've seen great success in. Recently, I became a member of Homes.com. It was super high priced when they first launched the Super Bowl ads, and they're coming at us pretty hard, and it just didn't make sense for my business. Then they came back again after a year, and it still wasn't a number that worked. Well, now they've changed their, pricing platform, and it's just based on your listing sides. And so I was able to get a very good deal considering I do have some listings on the market and even some stagnant ones, I'm not going to lie. Within 1 week of being on Homes.com and having that membership, I was able to put a listing under contract for $5,000 under list net price, that weekend after being on the market for 70 days. Maybe a coincidence, maybe not. I also had another stagnant listing that got multiple showings that first weekend that I was on there, and it's continued to get views and showings and so on. So if we can kind of step back and understand that maybe some of these platforms that are listing focused and not lead focused may be something worth looking into. I'm not going to promise you success right away like that, because that's pretty wild. But ultimately, if we're able to do that, that's just another metric we can pull in. And in fact, Homes.com sends my clients a listing rundown of, total views and favorites and things like that. And that goes a long way when we're, had few showings in a week or no showings in a week after we've been on the market for a while. These platforms are helping us just show the statistics, the metrics, and so on. And so if you make a distribution checklist and you have that, you can include that in your weekly update that you should be having with your clients on, the listing, what it's looking like, how things going. And ultimately, when you have all this data, then we can start to, follow up, right? Because we have the data for retargeting. We can talk about geofencing. We can talk about, where we go. But then what if, the fourth week or the third week we're on and we're going to do local business collabs, or we're highlighting local businesses, getting more people into our ecosystem that then may see that listing and be like, oh, that's a perfect backyard. I need it. Right. And so as we do this, if we can add some of these into our mix, we can absolutely make this an amazing thing. And I am building a GPT that you as an agent can use for absolutely free by commenting listing GPT below. I will send this to you. And if you do that, you can have a tool that will help you assess what to do, will help you create content, will help you, go through your listing and make sure that you're hitting all of this so you can get organized so that you can then take that information to your clients. And that, weekly call isn't so stressful and isn't so anxiety ridden because at least you have the data. And once we have the data, guess what? That's when maybe a price reduction is needed. Sometimes it is the price. I'm here to say it, but it's not all the time. So if you have this data and you're doing these things and you have this marketing piece about getting, these listings in front of people and on their eyes and everything that you can do, then we go to them with that. And now we have data to back up a price reduction versus just saying, oh, it's not showing, we must be overpriced. You very well may be overpriced, but let's put some data together and let's get some real information so that conversation isn't as hard, right? Because we've all had that conversation where you have a $750,000 listing. They're like, okay, let's drop the price $10,000, because then we can go to the data that's provided by our MLS or provided by our realtor boards and say, the average price reduction was this. Here's what happened. Here's how many houses went under contract that had price reductions and so on. And then we're taking a data-driven approach. We're removing the emotions from it because it's laid out in front of them. If they've had 10,000, impressions or views on the multiple platforms and 2 showings, and the showings, feedback said overpriced or whatever it was, there's different circumstances everywhere. If we can have that information, then that price reduction and the appropriate price reduction conversation gets a lot easier. So if you want to start having these listings not only sell, but leverage them and have an assistant in your pocket, please comment listing GPT below, and I'll make sure that I get that to you. While you're here, if you like what you heard, we talk strategies like this all the time, sometimes about building your business organically, which, by the way, this is an absolutely massive piece of building a business organically, is the repeat and referral clients. And if you can show up in a professional manner and dictate exactly what the statistics are and what's going on, and we communicate, we will win. And you will get referrals and more listings in that same neighborhood. Because let's be real, we don't control the market. However, we control the information and the metrics and all the things with all the tools that we have to put in front of our clients to make educated decisions. And they understand that it's, not our fault in most cases, but they understand more if they see the numbers and they see what's going on and they see the additional marketing that you're putting into it. So I hope this helps. Like, comment, subscribe. I would love to see you in our communities. And if you're interested in any of the things I talked about, please do what I told you to do. Follow those call to actions, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.